What we see here, this is the transmission control module from the Mercedes 722.9 or 7G-Tronic. This is Mercedes 7-speed automatic transmission, which was introduced in about 2004 and is used all the way up to the present. Now, one of the things that Mercedes had problems with was the speed sensor. Here I see the output shaft speed sensor, and of course I can tell there's a powerful magnet there. And here we have the turbine and the intermediate shaft speed sensor. Now oftentimes these will fail. Now only one actually has a magnet built into it. And they have two different designs. One design is relatively easy to remove. Now of course obviously I'm going to have to carefully break out the retainer and fold this back or break it away so that I can get at the turbine and intermediate speed sensor. Another design actually uses a type of potting material. In that case, you're going to need this punch down tool to actually break out that potting material. Now, when you do that, you want to be careful that you don't actually bust out this plastic portion of the housing, because then it's going to be difficult to reuse. Now, here, from a company in mainland China, I'm buying turbine and intermediate speed sensors. And I can also, from the same company, buy the output shaft sensor. So in one of these TCMs, there are actually three sensors. Here we see the output, the intermediate, and the turbine. Now how do I know that one of these has failed? Well, of course, I get a corresponding fault code that's there stored in the TCM and read it with my scan tool and make sure we understand which one is at fault. Now, obviously, when you buy these, you can buy them in sets, so you either have the two or the third one, the vehicle speed sensor. Normally what I recommend is if you have a failure, is that you identify which sensor has failed and only replace that one. Now how do I replace it? Well, first thing I'm going to do is use a quality soldering iron to carefully unsolder the terminals. Go ahead and oftentimes just a careful drill and try to remove this plastic cover. Now what happens is do not disturb the rivets that hold the heat sink for the actual electronics portion of the transmission control module. In fact, you're not going to be able to, quote, fold this up. You're going to have to actually break it. But what I'm after is this is the target device. This is the target device. Oftentimes, by just simply taking a sharp tool and just punching down through the plastic housing, actually making a hole, I'm going to actually punch out the old one. Now this is this type that I can do that, where it's not retained with potting compound. If it is retained with potting compound, it's much more difficult. I'm actually going to have to cut that potting compound with the punch down tool and then forcefully pull it out. So after identifying which speed sensor has failed, I'll remove the old one, install a new one, carefully solder it, remount the TCM back on the valve body, go ahead and put it back in the unit, and a fresh filter, fresh fluid, and away we go. And this seems to be very successful as long as I have a clear fault code indicating a failure with the speed sensor. Now obviously other faults are not going to be addressed here, and it is possible for the TCM itself to fail. So in that case I would be either purchasing from Mercedes a new transmission control module, or from an aftermarket supplier, a used one that has been what's called virginized, wiped so that it will accept a reprogram. Now, question is, where do you get it reprogrammed? Obviously, your local Mercedes dealer. They can do it. Here in my area, I have several places, or I should say actually mobile people that do this kind of work, and one of them is actually a key maker. That's right, he does some electronic keys for cars, Mercedes, BMWs, etc., and also can program transmission control modules for Mercedes. And of course the dealer. Now, obviously, Mercedes is very aware of this problem, and obviously the later model years, we probably aren't going to see this problem, but this is plaguing the units from probably about 2004 up through about 2011.